Now let's turn to the 3rd chapter of the book of Proverbs again. Today we'll finish verses 5 and 6 and take up 7 and 8. Let's read them. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel, and marrow to thy bones. 3 conditions given here for proper leadership. First, trust in the Lord with all thine heart. We've discussed that in detail. Second, acknowledge him. In all thy ways acknowledge him. We discussed that. Thirdly, negative, lean not to thine own understanding. Then this will lead to the reward. He shall direct thy paths. Literally, he shall make straight and clear all the obstructions and enable one to go on forward. Remember, he shall direct thy paths. This is not something that this will direct our paths, but he shall direct our paths. His direction will lead us into victorious paths of all kinds, moral perfection, because they will not sidetrack into the vice and the immoral paths, as we saw in the previous chapter, where in chapter 2 we saw the wicked man, evil man, and the evil woman, and so on, that mislead. But if we allow him and trust in him, acknowledge him, lean not to our own understanding, it'll lead us in a positive pathway. They will be happy paths because they will be prosperous paths. Let me read one verse that has been a great help to me, and this is in Joshua, the 1st chapter, verse 8. This book, this is what God says to Joshua, this book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, then thou shalt have good success. So you see, God says the way will be prosperous and you'll have good success if we allow him. And this is, of course, through his word. Now, if in true poverty of spirit, what do we mean by poverty of spirit? Now, do you mean that our spirit is weak? Not necessarily. That's not what I'm talking about. But what we're talking about is that our spirit is not haughty, that it is not self-assuming, that it is not proud, but rather that there is a poverty of spirit. Then he says, we go every morning to the Lord. If we, in this poverty of spirit, go every morning to the Lord, that is, as knowing not how we guide ourselves, but trusting totally in his direction. The same thought is brought out in one of the Beatitudes, Matthew 5, and in verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, meaning simply those who recognize in their own spirit that we do not have what it takes. We do not know God's way. But he says, blessed are they that are poor in spirit, for theirs shall be the kingdom of heaven. Or as Jehoshaphat, in 2 Chronicles 20, verse 11, he states, after he's been talking to God, you see, he had aligned himself with Ahab, and God said, this is not right. And so he broke this alliance, and he went on his own, and at once 3 of the nations united themselves together and pounced upon him. And as these armies were coming up against Jehoshaphat, who had but a small nation and a small army in Judah, he cast himself upon the Lord and said, Lord, we don't know which way to turn. We do not know what to do. But Lord, our eyes are upon you. We're going to see what you're going to do. And the Lord simply told him what to do and what he, God, was going to do. This was a wonderful way of complete salvation from these enemies. Our eyes must be constantly looking upward for direction. The psalmist in Psalm 143, verses 8, 9, and 10 says that so beautifully. Cause me to hear thy loving kindness in the morning, and in thee do I trust. Cause me to know the way wherein I shall walk, for I lift up my soul unto thee. Deliver me, O Lord, from mine enemies. I flee unto thee to hide me. Teach me to do thy will, for thou art my God. Thy spirit is good. Lead me into the land of the uprightness. And then, I don't know what I would do without Psalm 25. I have gone back to Psalm 25 dozens and dozens and dozens of times, possibly hundreds of times. So go back there for direction. Let me read some of the precious verses. I'll just pull out a few there from this great psalm. But you take that whole psalm, meditate on it daily, as long as you need help from God in leadership. Let me read a couple of verses. Verse 4 and 5. Show me thy way, O Lord. Teach me thy paths. Lead me in thy truth. Teach me, for thou art the God of my salvation. On thee do I wait all the day. Verse 9. The meek will he guide in judgment, and the meek will he teach his way. Verse 12. What man is he that feareth the Lord? Him shall the Lord teach in the way that he shall choose. His soul shall dwell at ease, and his seed shall inherit the earth. The secret of the Lord is with them that fear him, and he will show them his covenant. Verse 20. O keep my soul, and deliver me. Let me not be ashamed, for my trust is in thee. You see, put your whole confidence and your whole trust in the Lord. He is going to lead you in this way. We may at times be led for exercise of our faith in a way that we don't understand, perhaps even a way of disappointment. I call them sometimes detours. This is what happens to us. God's training his child for even greater ministry when he'd sometimes lead us into detours. Let me give you an illustration again from the Scriptures. 1 Peter 1, verses 5, 6, and 7. Who are kept by the power of God through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time, wherein ye greatly rejoice, though now, for a season, if need be. You see, God puts in this word, if need be. This is not for everybody, but if there's a special need. Ye are in heaviness, through manifold testings or temptations, that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than the gold that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of our Lord Jesus Christ. He may lead us in pathways which we do not understand or comprehend at this time. Take, for instance, Joseph. Now, Joseph was destined to be a ruler, but God took him on a detour. The detour to the throne was essential in his life. There were some 13 years that God took him on a detour. It started out in the pit when his own brothers put him in the pit, and he thought he was going to die there. They derobed him and took his robe and took it to his father. They figured that, this would be just a way of getting rid of him. But then the next day they sold him, to Egypt, and he became a slave to Potiphar. And there, of course, he prospered in the sense in that he was faithful to God, but Potiphar's wife tested him and tempted him for sexual sin, and he would not fall in line. And finally, he just ran away, and she had grabbed him by the coat, and he left his coat and ran away. So she used all of this against him, and this caused him to be cast into the prison. Now, what for? I thought he was going to the throne. Now he was down in the dungeon. But this was God's way of leading him up. He was there in company with two men who were the king's servants, and they had dreams. And Joseph, of course, interpreted their dreams. One was to die, and the other one was to get back into his job, serving the king. And then he said to this one that was to go back to the king, he said, now remember me when you go there. Remember me to the king. I'm in this place. I don't belong in this place. I have done nothing to get here, and I've been falsely accused, and so on and so on. But the man forgot it for 2 more years, until God gave Joseph some dreams. During those 2 years, God trained Joseph in a very special way. After 13 years, he was exalted to a position as the second ruler in Egypt. A detour? Yes, what a wonderful detour in this case. And I'm sure he praised the Lord for it many times. Israel found the same thing. When they were led out of the land of Egypt, they were led on a detour. It says by the way of the Red Sea. They were to go to Canaan, but why by the way of the Red Sea? Well, the cloud led them. Listen to the words. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them in the way, by night in the pillar of fire to give them light, and to go by day or by night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night, from before them. In the daytime they had a cloud as a pillar to lead them. In the nighttime this pillar turned to electric lights for them, and they could see the place where they were going. Job had a very similar experience. In the 23rd chapter, Job talks about this in verses 8 to 10, when he was also being tested very, very severely. And he says, behold, I go forward, but he is not there. He says he's trying to find the Lord, but he can't find him there. I go backward, and I can't perceive him there. I go to the left, and I don't find him there. I don't know where he is. He's hiding me somewhere in the right side. And then finally he says, but he knoweth the way that I take, and when he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold. That was the secret, friends. That is the whole secret. Jeremiah also has something to say about this in the 10th chapter and the 23rd verse. He says, O Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walketh to direct his paths. So he says, O Lord, correct me, but with judgment, and not in thine anger, lest thou bring me to nothing. So you see, all over, God has done this. He leads people sometimes on detours. But be assured of one thing. His way is always the correct way, and he'll lead to the correct goal. He never makes a mistake. For this we can absolutely trust him. Remember those early verses again from the Proverbs there? Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not to thine own understanding. And then he shall direct thy paths. But verses 7 and 8 again. And be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. I'll just read that far. Complete spiritual health, he says, is to us. He carries on the thought, this verse 7 now, carries on the thought that we've already discussed with you in verses 5 and 6. Direction, but be not wise in your own eyes. It is a protest against self-sufficiency, self-conceit, self-reliance. But the emphasis is on trust in the Lord, not in yourself. Isaiah says, woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes, and who are prudent in their own sight, because such a spirit leads to self-dependence, and it is therefore inconsistent with, namely, the fearing of the Lord. So he says, fear the Lord with all your heart. Be not wise in your own conceits, says Paul in Romans 12:16. And in Galatians 6:3, again, we also read that we are not to trust in ourselves. For when a man thinketh he is something when he is nothing. Well, that's self-conceit. But rather he says, fear the Lord and depart from evil. Where God is honored, sin is hated. Sin is loathed. Sin is resisted. Not only is the fear of the Lord the beginning of wisdom, yes, it says it is true wisdom, plus it leads to the departure from evil, as we've already known in Job 28:28, that it leads away from evil. And so God has a way of leading us away from evil unto himself and in the pathway that he wants to lead us.
This concludes the series of studies on Knowing the Will of God by Theodore F.
Thank you for listening to Back to the Bible. Join us again tomorrow. God bless you.